The plasma cannons were already charging when Maya Reeves broke her silence. For 3 months, she hadn't spoken a word. Her instructors called her broken. Her fellow cadets whispered she was weak. The Academy's psychologists filed reports recommending her discharge. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Delta 7 formation, Maya whispered, watching 9 Gorran warships close on the Orbital Combat Academy. Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade through silk. Tight intervals, sensor shadows. That's Captain Zorn. Around her, Simulation Chamber 7 erupted in panic. Cadet Nira's blue scales had gone ghost pale as she fumbled with unfamiliar weapon systems. Other cadets shouted in a dozen languages, their coordination crumbling like sand. But Maya stood still, her finger steady on the trigger, counting the seconds until 43 ghosts would have their revenge. The Academy's hull groaned under the first plasma strike. Emergency klaxons screamed. The lights flickered to combat red. Titan Station had sounded the same when it died. "Lieutenant," Nira's voice cracked. "Those ships, what are they?" Maya's rifle found her shoulder. Too light, too clean. Nothing like the blood-slicked weapon she'd clutched in Titan Station's corridors. "Death," Maya said. "Unless we're smarter than they expect." The tactical display showed the enemy formation shifting. 9 ships becoming 18 sensor contacts, then 6, then 12 again. Gorran stealth tech creating false readings, masking their true numbers and positions. Maya had seen this dance before, in her nightmares, every night for 3 months, but this time, she knew the steps. "Nira," Maya's voice carried new authority. "Your sonar can punch through stealth fields, adapted to the sensor array. Now, I've never tried it on this scale. You can do it." Maya's eyes never left the display. "Jorek, you're coordinating point defense. Your reflexes are triple human standard. Use them. Vex, I need predictive analysis on their formation changes." "How do you know what we can do?" Jorek demanded, his crystalline structure pulsing confusion. Maya's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Because for 3 months, I've been watching, learning, preparing." Her fingers danced across controls that shouldn't have been accessible to cadets. Around the Academy, other simulation chambers began receiving coordinated instructions. "Lieutenant Reeves," Admiral Torres's voice crackled through communications. "Report to Command Center." "Negative, Admiral." Maya's tone brooked no argument. "I'm exactly where 43 dead need me to be." The first defense platform exploded in a cascade of debris and electromagnetic fire. But this time, Maya was ready. This time, the dead would have their voice. 3 months earlier, Maya Reeves stepped off the transport ship New Horizon carrying a single duffel bag and the screams of friends. Admiral Torres waited in the docking bay with Commander Valix, both expecting to meet Earth's rising star. Instead, they found a walking wound. "Lieutenant Reeves." Torres offered his warmest smile. "Welcome to the Academy. Your reputation precedes you." Maya's eyes fixed on something beyond the station walls, something only she could see. The sound of Martinez's last transmission, the smell of burning atmosphere, the weight of 43 dog tags in her hands. She nodded once, said nothing. Valix's forearms twitched. "Lieutenant, I am Commander Valix, your primary training officer. The Academy expects excellence from all candidates." Maya looked at him for 3 seconds. Long enough to catalogue his species' weakness points, his stance, his tells, then she looked away. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. Then unbearable. "Your quarters are prepared," Torres said. "Training begins at 600. Maya picked up her bag and walked past them both. Her footsteps echoed in the corridor. Measured, military, haunted. Until they disappeared. Behind her, Valix's mandibles clicked. "Earth Command sends us a broken soldier. This is their best?" Torres watched Maya's retreating figure. Something in her bearing, her movements, whispered of deeper currents. "Sometimes," he said, "the broken ones see clearest." He was about to be proven right. For 3 months, Maya haunted the Academy like a ghost with unfinished business. She attended every training session, present but absent. She sat through tactical briefings, absorbing every word while contributing none. She participated in combat simulations with mechanical precision, but zero engagement. Her performance scores painted a picture of failure. But in the Academy's observation deck, Maya found purpose. She would stand for hours before the vast windows, a notebook clutched in her hands, watching Kepler Prime's storms while documenting everything she'd learned, every tactical manual in the database, every historical engagement, every species combat doctrine, every instructor's methods, every cadet's strengths, and most important, every detail of the Gorran attack patterns that had turned Titan Station into a tomb. "Mind if I join you?" Cadet Neera had asked one evening, her blue scales pale. Maya didn't turn, but her posture shifted, the first acknowledgement she'd given anyone in weeks. "My homeworld is mostly ocean." Neera continued, settling beside the human. "When I was young, I thought storms were angry. But my mother told me storms weren't angry. They were processing. All that energy had to go somewhere." Maya's knuckles went white around her notebook. "You're not broken, are you?" Neera whispered. "You're processing." Maya nodded once, so slight anyone else would have missed it. But Neera saw. "I knew you were listening," she said. Instructor Kess had noticed too. The tall reptilian watched Maya during weapons maintenance, observing the way she handled components with muscle memory and precision that spoke of recent, desperate use. "Combat experience shows," Kess told Maya one day. "The way you handle these weapons, that's not textbook knowledge. That's survival." Maya's hands stilled on the rifle she was cleaning. "I lost my first unit too," Kess admitted. 47 years ago. Spent 2 years convinced I'd never be fit for command again." Maya looked up for the first time in weeks. Her voice came out rough. "What changed?" "I realized hiding from command wasn't honoring my dead," Kess replied. "Learning from my mistakes, that was honoring them. But the Academy's patience was running thin." Torres faced pressure from Earth Command. Valek spoke of removing Maya from the program. Fix her, or send her home. Maya had overheard Valek tell Torres, "She's taking up space we need for functional officers." Maya's fists had clenched then. The first spark of anger she'd allowed herself in months. They didn't understand. Couldn't understand. In her notebook, filled with tactical analyses and behavioral observations, Maya continued her real work, the work of learning, the work of understanding, the work of making sure she would never lead anyone into a massacre again. She just hadn't expected to test that knowledge so soon. The day that changed everything, Lieutenant Maya Reeves stood on Titan Station's observation deck, watching the morning shift change with the confidence of someone who had never failed at anything that mattered. At 26, she was the youngest human ever assigned to command a deep space security detail, 43 personnel from 6 different species, all depending on her tactical brilliance. "Beautiful morning, Lieutenant," said Sergeant Kim Martinez, joining her at the viewport. His coffee steamed in the recycled air. His smile was warm, genuine. The last smile Maya would see for 3 months. "Every day we keep this station safe is a beautiful day, Sergeant," Maya replied, her confidence evident in every gesture. That confidence lasted 12 more minutes. "Ma'am!" Corporal Davies called from communications, his Welsh accent tight. 3 ships approaching from the Gorran border. They're not responding to identification requests. Maya frowned, studying the tactical display. Standard pirate formation. Basic approach vectors. Nothing threatening. "Pirates?" she asked. "Unlikely. Their formation is too disciplined. Delta 7 approach with tight interval spacing." Maya had never seen that formation before. Should have been suspicious. Should have raised shields. Should have called for reinforcements. Instead, she hesitated. Raise shields to 50%. She decided. If they're legitimate, they won't mind our caution. The first plasma bolt struck Titan Station's communication array 12 seconds later. Surgical precision that spoke of intimate knowledge of the station's weaknesses. "Red alert! All hands to battle stations!" Maya shouted, but the Gorran assault was unlike anything in the tactical manuals. They moved with devastating precision, targeting escape pods and life support. "They're using new tactics," Martinez reported, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I've never seen coordination like this." Neither had Maya. And that ignorance was about to cost 43 lives. "Form up on me," Maya ordered, leading her team through corridors that became a maze of death. "We buy the civilians time to reach emergency shelters." But the Gorrans had planned for that too. As Maya's team moved to defend key positions, the enemy anticipated every move, every tactical decision, every desperate attempt to mount resistance. Martinez fell in a crossfire while covering civilians, 3 plasma bolts sent en masse, his coffee cup shattering on the deck. Davies died trying to restore communications, his final transmission cut short by a Gorran blade. One by one, Maya watched her people die following orders she gave, based on tactics that no longer worked. "Lieutenant, this way!" Ensign Cooper, barely 19 and fresh from academy training, led her toward the escape pods. "There's only one left operational." Maya saw the damaged pod and knew the truth. Gorran weapons had been precise. They'd wanted survivors. Witnesses. "Only room for one." "Then you take it, ma'am." "That's an order, Ensign." Cooper's young face cracked in a sad smile. "Sorry, Lieutenant, but my duty is to my commanding officer." He shoved her into the pod and slammed the emergency launch before she could protest. Maya spent 6 days alone in that pod, watching Titan Station burn, listening to her own voice repeat the same message. "This is Lieutenant Maya Reeves, sole survivor of Titan Station. 43, Key IA. Mission failure. I led them into a trap. I killed them all. 6 days to memorize every tactical mistake, every missed opportunity, every detail of the attack that had murdered her family. Now, 3 months later, that same enemy had found her again. But this time, Maya was ready, back in the present. As Gorran plasma bolts hammered the Academy's outer shields, Maya felt calm descending, the clarity that came with crisis. "Nearer!" Maya's voice cut through the chaos. "Sonar adaptation. Now, your people's bioacoustics can penetrate any stealth field the Gorrans possess." Neera's scales flickered. The first direct order Maya had given in months. "The power requirements alone." "You can do it," Maya said. "Jorik, point defense coordination. Your reaction time is 2.3 times human standard. Use it." "Vex, computational analysis on their formation shifts." "I need predictions, not observations." "How do you know our capabilities so well?" Jorik demanded, his crystalline form pulsing confusion. "Because for 3 months, I've catalogued every species in this academy, every instructor's methodology, every cadet's potential." Maya replied, her fingers dancing across controls that shouldn't have been accessible to cadets. "I've studied you all." The tactical display shifted as Maya input commands. Around the academy, other simulation chambers began receiving coordinated instructions, a level of tactical integration that should have taken years to achieve. "Lieutenant Reeves," Admiral Torres' voice crackled. "Report to Command Center." "Negative, Admiral," Maya replied. "I'm exactly where 43 ghosts need me to be." On the display, the Gorran ships began their dance, the same pattern that had destroyed Titan Station. But this time, Maya knew every step. "Those ships," Maya announced to her team as she fine-tuned their defensive response, "are using Pattern 7 assault formation with modified interval spacing to mask true ship count." "I've seen it before." "Where?" Neera asked, her voice strained as she interfaced with the sensor array. Maya's expression hardened. "Titan Station, 3 months ago. Zorn turned my home into a graveyard using these tactics." On the tactical display, the Gorran ships began splitting into harassment groups, exactly as Maya had predicted. But this time, the Academy was ready. "Execute coordinated defense pattern, Alpha, Maya, broadcast to all chambers. Show them what 3 months of grief can accomplish." The Academy's response was poetry written in plasma fire. The Academy's defense grid erupted not in desperate random fire, but in coordinated devastation. Every shot calculated, every defensive movement timed to split-second precision. Maya's 3 months of observation had revealed weaknesses in traditional doctrine. Weaknesses she now exploited. Impossible, breathed the sensor operator in the command center. How is a cadet coordinating multi-species tactical integration at this level? Because she's not just a cadet, Admiral Torres realized, watching the display. She's been studying us, all of us, for 3 months. In Simulation Chamber 7, Maya felt the embrace of combat clarity. Her hands moved with precision born of desperate study. Every system mapped, every protocol memorized, every species' capabilities catalogued. Nearer, stealth disruption status? Bio, acoustic jamming is working, Nira reported, strain evident in her flickering scales. Their coordination matrix is fragmenting. Good. Vex. Enemy response prediction? Captain Zorn will adapt within 73 seconds, Vex replied, crystalline form pulsing. He'll switch to visual coordination protocols, which means he'll have to decloak his command ship, Maya concluded. Perfect. The main display shifted as one of the larger Gorran vessels materialized. Stealth field, dropping, as it assumed direct tactical control of the fragmenting formation. Maya opened a direct communication channel. Captain Zorn, this is Lieutenant Maya Reeves. I believe we have unfinished business. The response came fast, voice dripping with contempt. The survivor. You should have died with your unit at Titan Station. I lived to learn. Maya replied with ice-cold calm. To remember. To make sure what you did to Martinez, Davies, Cooper, and 40 others never happens again. Around the Academy, her coordinated defense was dismantling the Gorran formation. Every weakness she had identified during months of study was being exploited. A symphony of destruction conducted by a mind that had transformed grief into tactical genius. Your Academy's defenses are impressive, Zorn admitted, his voice tight. But futile. Are they? Maya asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're about to suffer the same tactical surprise you gave us at Titan Station. She input a final series of commands, a maneuver that would have been impossible without intimate knowledge of every cadet's capabilities, every system's potential, every species' hidden strengths. You made one error, Captain, Maya continued, her voice carrying the weight of 43 deaths. You assumed I was broken by what happened, but grief isn't weakness. It's information. And I've had 3 months to process that information into something you can't counter. The Gorran formation began collapsing under the coordinated assault. Ships that had seemed invincible were now retreating, their tactical advantage neutralized by an enemy who understood their methods better than they understood themselves. This is not over, human, Zorn transmitted as his ships began emergency withdrawal. Yes, it is, Maya replied. Because now the entire galaxy knows your tactics. The surprise is gone, Captain. And without surprise, you're just another raider with delusions of grandeur. The last Gorran ship vanished into hyperspace, leaving the Academy intact and defended by cadets who had just learned what true coordination could accomplish. In the sudden silence, Maya set down her rifle and allowed herself to feel what she'd buried for 3 months. Relief, pride, and something that might have been peace. The Academy's main assembly hall had never held such electric silence. 200 cadets, instructors, and staff stood witness to numbers that redefined possibility. 0 casualties, minimal system damage, complete rout of a superior enemy force. In 40 years of military service, Admiral Torres began, his voice carrying newfound respect, I have never witnessed tactical coordination of this magnitude achieved by Academy cadets, using improvised protocols and training equipment. He looked at Maya. Lieutenant Reeves, your performance today has revolutionized our understanding of multi-species tactical integration. Commander Valek stepped forward, his forearms moving in formal recognition. A gesture Maya had catalogued but never expected directed at her. The Academy Board votes to grant you highest honors. But more important, we owe you an apology. Maya stepped forward, but instead of triumph, her expression showed exhaustion that went bone deep. Thank you, Commander. But I need to say something first. The hall fell silent enough to hear the station's life support humming. 3 months ago, I arrived here carrying the weight of 43 deaths, Maya said, her voice carrying to every corner. I blamed myself for leading my team into a trap, for failing to anticipate enemy tactics, for surviving when they didn't. She paused, meeting alien and human gazes alike. I was silent because I was terrified that if I spoke, if I led again, I would make the same mistakes. I would get more people killed. Nira stepped forward from the crowd, her blue scales shimmering. But you didn't get anyone killed today. You saved everyone. Maya nodded, a genuine smile crossing her features for the first time in months. Because I learned something during this silence. Grief isn't weakness. It's information. It teaches you what matters most, and what you're willing to fight for. She turned to address the assembly. Every species here has lost people. The question isn't whether we'll face loss again, it's whether we'll learn from that loss. Valex's compound eyes reflected newfound understanding. And what did you learn, Lieutenant? I learned that the best way to honor the dead isn't to hide from command, Maya replied. It's to command better. To study harder, think deeper, and coordinate more than the enemy expects. Torres stepped forward. Lieutenant Reeves, I'm offering you a position as Senior Tactical Instructor. Your methods have extraordinary merit. Maya considered the offer. I accept, Admiral, but I have conditions. Which are? First, no more silent observers. Every cadet participates. Second, tactical innovation is encouraged, not just tolerated. And third, we stop treating different approaches as wrong approaches. Agreed, Torres said. When can you start? Maya smiled genuinely, the expression transforming her entire face. I think I already have. Epilogue, New Voices, 3 months later. The Academy's newest class stood at attention as Senior Tactical Instructor Maya Reeves paced before them. Her confident bearing reflected complete transformation from silent observer to respected leader. Tactical coordination? Maya announced, her voice carrying authority earned through fire, is not about making everyone fight the same way. It's about making everyone fight together. She paused before a nervous human cadet whose hands trembled. Name? Recruit? Cadet Johnson, ma'am. First time off Earth? Yes, ma'am. Feeling lost among all these different species? Johnson nodded. Maya smiled with understanding. Good. Confusion means you're paying attention. The moment you think you understand everything is the moment you stop learning. She moved to a crystalline being whose structure chimed softly with nervous harmonics. And you? Cadet Harmony, Instructor. Your species processes information at quantum speeds, correct? Yes, Instructor. Must be frustrating, working with slower thinkers. Harmony's structure dimmed with embarrassment. Sometimes, Instructor. Then you'll learn patience, Maya said matter-of-factly. And the slow thinkers will learn speed. Everyone here has something to teach and something to learn. She returned to the front, where a framed photograph sat in a place of honor. 43 faces smiling in a moment of unit cohesion and pride. Over the next 6 months, you will train together, fail together, and succeed together. Some of you will want to quit. Some will want to hide. Her voice softened with hard-earned wisdom. That's normal. Growth requires discomfort. Innovation requires failure. Excellence requires the courage to be vulnerable. Behind Maya, Valex's antennae twitched with amusement, different from previous instructors. Instructor Kess nodded approvingly. Different, but devastatingly effective. Graduation rates up 30% since she took over. Above them, Admiral Torres stood with visiting officers from across the galaxy. Is it true she developed the new coordination protocols while refusing to speak for 3 months? Asked a Delphian admiral. True. Torres confirmed. Sometimes the best teachers are those who've learned the hardest lessons. Maya continued her address to the recruits. In your quarters tonight, you'll find the complete tactical analysis of the Titan Station engagement. Everything that went wrong, and why. Several recruits shifted uncomfortably. Don't worry, Maya added with gentle understanding. It's not about dwelling on failure. It's about understanding it so completely that you never repeat it. She picked up the photograph, holding it where everyone could see. These were my people. They died because their commanding officer wasn't prepared for an enemy who thought differently than expected. Silence filled the hall. I'm not telling you this to burden you with my mistakes, but to give you something I wish I'd had. The knowledge that failure is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your education. She set the photograph back in its place of honor, no longer hidden in shame, but displayed with pride. The first word I spoke after 3 months of silence wasn't hello or help, Maya concluded. It was remember, because in that single word, 43 ghosts found their voice. Your job is to make sure their sacrifice teaches others to survive. As the recruits filed out, Assistant Instructor Nira approached Maya's desk. How do you think they'll do? Nira asked. Maya watched the last recruit disappear down the corridor. They'll do exactly what we did. They'll struggle, they'll learn, and eventually, they'll surprise themselves with what grief can teach. She touched the photograph gently. That's what makes us human, Nira. Not that we don't fail, but that we transform failure into wisdom. We adapt, we grow, we remember, and we teach others to do the same. Nira added softly. Exactly, Maya agreed. The dead teach the living, and the living teach the future. Outside the viewports, Kepler Prime continued its eternal dance of storms and calm. But inside the station, the next generation of defenders was learning that true strength came not from avoiding failure, but from transforming it into wisdom. Maya Reeves, the human recruit who had been silent for 3 months, had indeed broken every galactic combat record. But more important, she had learned to break the cycle of silence that trauma creates, transforming grief into purpose and loss into leadership. In the end, that was the most human thing of all. The end,